Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Then let's get this show started right now.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter at Michael5Ritter and on Instagram at MichaelRitter5. So you can kind of just switch the 5 around there. I'm not sure why I did it like that. It was a long time ago. I definitely wish I wouldn't have, but I did. So there you go. That's where you can find me. And today we are going to be talking about the SmackDown that aired on February 19th, 2021, the go-home show for the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view that's going to be happening this Sunday. So as you can expect, we get a pretty good episode of SmackDown per usual, nothing to really complain about here. And we can just get ready for the pay-per-view that's going to come. By doing that, I will give my quick predictions after the SmackDown review is over. And then following that, I will get to my top 5. This one's going to be the top 5 Elimination Chamber pay-per-views of all time. But before we get there, guys, I do want to thank you again for listening. If you're a first-time listener, thank you for choosing this podcast. I'm glad that you did, and I hope that you will not regret it. And if you're a regular listener, thank you for making this part of your weekly routine. And I hope you will continue to do so. Following this episode, I hope it does not disappoint, and we will get right to that SmackDown review right now. So, this SmackDown started a little bit different than SmackDowns of recent. Instead of Roman Reigns opening the show, this time we get Edge, and that was actually, a pleasant surprise. Anytime that SmackDown can start, or any WWE program for that matter, with Edge's theme song, I'm sure that most WWE fans will not complain. And obviously, he's in the evaluation process for his options for WrestleMania, and he's acknowledging that as of right now, there's 13 possible opponents for him, just by doing the math, counting both Elimination Chambers plus Roman Reigns. I did notice, though, that math did not include the NXT champion Finn Balor, so without it being said, you can just assume that he's ruling out the NXT championship as being one of his choices, as he should. I mean, I don't think that the NXT championship is worthy of being the WrestleMania main event. At some point it will be. I'm not saying that it never will be, but as of right now, there's far better options for Edge to pick, and he's probably going to do that following the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view itself. But like I said, he's evaluating his options. He cuts a little bit of a promo before he's interrupted by Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and Jey Uso. And Roman comes out to clarify that he doesn't actually have 13 guys to pick from, that there's really only one, and it's the guy who's about to be in his 5th or 6th main event at WrestleMania, which is crazy to actually think that that's real, but it is true. Roman Reigns he's been in about probably 5 main events at WrestleMania, I think. I know probably 4 in a row. I know we've already touched on that. It's crazy. It's unheard of. It might never be matched. We'll see. Definitely time will tell there. But Edge says that whenever he looks at Roman Reigns, when he looks in his eyes, that he thinks that Roman looks insecure. And he says that Roman's gotten too much too soon, and that's going to cause pressure. Their little encounter stops there as Sami Zayn comes out with the documentary crew to claim that he was disrespected by 2 of the greatest wrestlers in WWE history, because they're completely overlooking the possibility of Sami Zayn coming out on top this Sunday in the Elimination Chamber match. Which, he does have a point. They are kind of overlooking any of the other guys. Not really Edge, and we'll get to that later in the show. He kind of makes it a trend to talk to several of the guys who are going to be participating in the Chamber match. But Sami thinks that they are completely overlooking him, adding on to his conspiracy theorist persona, and saying that everybody is against him. So he forces his personal cameraman to get the quote-unquote iconic shot of him pointing up to the WrestleMania sign. But he doesn't get many more words out after that, because he gets dropped with a super kick, or by a super kick from Jey Uso. And then after that, after the dust settles a little bit, Paul Heyman grabs the microphone and the Universal Championship that were in Roman Reigns' hands. And then Roman puts his hands behind his back, slowly walks up to Edge, and then whispers in his ear. before they all walk away. But this was kind of weird. They didn't really allude to what was said or even hint to it. They actually didn't even really mention it again. It was kind of just something that if you were looking away on your phone at the moment, you wouldn't have even noticed that it was happening. But because, they didn't really say anything about it, you just would have had to have been looking at the screen to know what was going on. And that's kind of what it was. I was hoping that they would maybe allude to it. Edge's facial expressions didn't really give anything away one way or the other, what exactly was said, so you can just assume that that was to leave us all wondering, and that's certainly what it did. And we don't really see much more of Roman Reigns after that. He does make a little bit of appearance later on in the show, and of course we'll get there, but other than this, Roman Reigns had a pretty easy night as he gets ready for his title defense this Sunday, which, if I could guess, will probably close the show. So moving on here, we get Apollo Crews versus Shinsuke Nakamura with Big E on commentary. And I noticed here in this match, or at least before the match, they showed that instead of pulling up a chair, like normal to the announce table, Big E actually had his own personal couch at ringside and a TV tray with some sort of microwavable dinner. So he basically had his own little living room set up right at ringside. It was pretty convenient. Probably a pretty nice way to watch wrestling. I'm sure if any of us could do that, I'm sure we would definitely not pass up on that opportunity. But as far as the match itself, it really didn't go on very long. And Apollo Crews actually throws Shinsuke Nakamura intentionally into Big E as he was sitting there on his couch. But surprisingly, that doesn't cause, a brawl to break out or anything like that. The match doesn't end via disqualification right there. It kind of just keeps going, and Big E just sits there and continues to be a guest on commentary. And as he's on commentary, he continues to get annoyed with Michael Cole and Corey Graves. They won't stop asking him questions about Apollo Crews. And Big E insists that he would rather talk about a guy that he hasn't beaten 3 times in 6 weeks. The match continues, but not for much longer. Shinsuke Nakamura tries to get Apollo Crews in the armbar, but this right here was kind of weird. His legs were raised up just enough for Shinsuke to grab him, and he kind of just rolls him up right there where they were sitting, and he gets the roll-up victory. And as you could expect, Apollo Crews doesn't really take that very well. He attacks Shinsuke Nakamura after the match and continues to do so outside of the ring until Big E has to step in and kind of save the day. And Big E kind of repeatedly, I don't know what's wrong with me tonight, guys. You got to bear with me like usual. But anyways, Big E repeatedly tells him that he's done. He should just stop, make his way backstage. And Big E turns around to check on Nakamura. And Apollo Crews immediately hits Big E from behind with those steel steps. And then turns his attention and the beatdown onto Big E. And the referee does all he can to stop Apollo. He tries to demand that he puts the steps down. And Apollo agrees, but as you would expect, there's a catch, and he just decides to drop the steel steps from about 7 or 8 feet because he's standing on the ring, puts them over the ropes, drops them, and Big E's kind of just laying there outside of the ring, and the steps fall on him, and apparently that is something that's pretty rough because they ended up carting Big E off. I don't necessarily think that the steps have been, that damaging in the past. You see wrestlers of all shapes and sizes pick them up and throw them over the ropes and all that. So I don't know. I feel like they could have definitely done a little bit more there if they were trying to cart Big E off. The steps just getting dropped on him wasn't necessarily something that I would see worthy of getting carted off. If he got dropped, maybe power bombed on the steps, that's one thing. But I don't know. Maybe I missed something in the little encounter or the beatdown that led to Big E getting carted off. But either way, I do actually enjoy this from Apollo Crews' standpoint. Number one, he gets more mic time. He had a little bit of a promo before the match kind of explaining things like his Nigerian grandparents and things like that and where exactly he comes from. I really like that. And this is just a little bit further development for his heel turn. I like the slow burn. It's baby steps. I'm cool with that because I am invested in this. And they have me intrigued by what they can do with Apollo Crews' character going forward, especially if he's going to start acknowledging his past, or not necessarily his past, but his heritage. And if he's going to maybe start embracing that a little bit, which could lead to a more drastic shift in his character, which is definitely what he needs. But either way, I'm going to be, like I just said, invested in this because I do want to see what happens here. You guys have known, I've said it on recent weeks here on this show, that I do want to see Apollo Crews' situation get handled the right way, and I think that they are doing it. I'm glad that they're doing it consistently and slowly, because you don't want to rush into it. So I'm fine with the way they're handling it, and I hope that they continue to do so going forward. Moving on here, we get Seth Rollins, and as Big E's getting carted off on the stretcher, Seth Rollins is walking out, and he's kind of looking at Big E, and then he grabs the mic and tells the crowd, or I guess obviously the people that are watching at home, that Big E, or what just happened to him, was a disgrace. And Seth adds that all of the SmackDown roster turned their back on him last week, and they show the video package, and Seth claims that it's emotional trauma and says that him and his lawyers have delivered a formal complaint to the WWE officials and legal action is pending. And he says that the moment was ruined by a bunch of losers and cowards, referring to the SmackDown locker room. And then he adds that Cesaro is the biggest loser because he tried to make the moment about himself by not leaving with everybody else and staying, which ultimately led to Seth Rollins beating him up. And this is all we got from Seth Rollins tonight, so it looks like they are working him in a little bit slowly, getting him back into the groove, but it does look like Cesaro might be the guy that they are setting their sights on for his first program, which I am all the way on board for. These two can put on a hell of a show. I know they have a lot of history together, so if that's the way they're going, you could sign me up for that all day. I know that people are suspecting Cesaro to maybe have a little bit bigger things in store for him. That all is going to be figured out this weekend. Seth Rollins could maybe have a part to do with that. I don't think he obviously isn't on the card or anything like that, so that hasn't stopped anybody in the past from making their appearance in the Elimination Chamber. So it's something to keep an eye on. I'm not necessarily predicting Seth Rollins to do anything like that, but if Cesaro, who is a favorite right now to win that Elimination Chamber, is going to lose, you could see Seth Rollins maybe having a little bit of a hand in that if that's the direction that they want to go. And up next, we get a backstage segment with Edge. This is kind of what I was referring to. He kind of makes it's kind of a trend throughout the night. The Edge talks to a lot of the people that are inside of the chamber individually. Just throughout the night, he'll approach them one by one and have a little bit of a moment with them. This one right here was Kevin Owens. So Edge and Kevin Owens have a little bit of a warm embrace backstage. Edge tells him that he would love to face him at Mania, and he means that. You could tell that he did. And I really like this because these are the segments that WWE would use back then, or back in the day. They would use these as major foreshadowing to set up a long-term build on a match. They would use this, time in the year, whether it's Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, anything like that, to set up these little backstage encounters that would reward fans for paying attention later on, months down the road, whenever something would happen. Just for example, just because, Goldberg was a big topic last week, and I'm not going to keep, talking about him week in and week out, but just like as an example for this, in 2003, Goldberg had the little bit of a run-in with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series whenever they were both champions, and then that was setting up for an encounter that they had at the Royal Rumble where they just bumped into each other backstage. Brock Lesnar ends up eliminating him whenever he wasn't in the Royal Rumble match. They end up having a match at Mania. So when you look at something that happened at Survivor Series in November that ended up having its blow-off, whatever you want to call it, in the match itself, we're not even going to get into that, but the match itself happening in March, WWE just does not do that anymore. So it's something that I would like to see them do, and this was just an example of something that if Kevin Owens were to win, they could pull back from, because, I think Edge and Kevin Owens would be a hell of a main event, and I know it wouldn't be, the moneymaker, it wouldn't catch the eye of most casual fans and people who are just, peeking their head in around WrestleMania. Most people would probably rather see Edge versus Roman. But I do think that Edge versus Kevin Owens would be a hell of a storyline. And obviously it'd be a hell of a lot better with Kevin Owens in the heel role, which he isn't in right now. So that would be kind of hard to do, especially with their embrace that they had. It was clearly from both people being baby faces. So that's something that maybe they should hold off on until Kevin Owens gets back in his more natural heel role. I think that that's whenever you can get the most out of this. But I didn't mean to go off topic there with the whole Goldberg-Brock Lesnar thing. I just wanted to give an example of when WWE can use these backstage little encounters as pretty major foreshadowing. And, I know there's a lot of fans out there that love that kind of stuff, and I'm definitely one of them. But moving on down the line here, we get the Riot Squad versus Natalya and Tamina. And Billie Kay comes out to the ringside in cat ears and a Tamina shirt. Because, this match doesn't last very long. So she comes in almost immediately. And they actually had to point out that it was a Tamina shirt. Corey Graves had to say something on commentary. Because obviously there's probably not that many people out there who knew that was a Tamina shirt just by looking at it. Normally, though, Billie Kay has been a bad luck charm for any team she's tried to support. But despite getting the mid-match support from Billie Kay this week, it doesn't seem to be an issue for Natty and Tamina because they quickly pick up the win as Billie Kay tried to celebrate after the match. Natty and Tamina were not having it, though. Billie Kay actually had to eat a super kick from Tamina, so that celebration ended pretty quickly. I am glad that they did something a little bit different with Billie this week. Last week I said that the Liv Morgan Riot Squad stuff was getting a little bit repetitive with how they were doing kind of the same thing. They were doing basically that exact same thing this week, except she was supporting a different team. I like that. It's, small change. So, I'm not asking for drastic changes every week. I just don't want to see WWE waste what they have with Billie Kay by making her do the things that she does, making it repetitive. Having her move on to a new team actually makes sense. And I do feel like it's only a matter of time before WWE has to take the L on this one and just reunite the Iconics. You have two stars or potential stars kind of just being wasted right now in their respective brands. There was no reason to split them up. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you guys know what I'm talking about. I do think it's only a matter of time. They had their little moment in the Royal Rumble. If there would have been fans there, they probably would have popped. But either way, that's how I feel about that. And I'm sure a lot of people are with me. The Iconics were much better at a tag team. Billie Kay needs Peyton Royce right now. And I think the other way around is probably a little bit worse. Billie Kay seems to at least be finding where she belongs. Peyton Royce just kind of seems like she's being hot potatoed between women's tag team matches and who's her partner, this and that. Lacey Evans seems to be the more consistent tag team partner she's had. But, I'm sure everybody's known by now. Looks like she may have to find a new tag team partner because Lacey Evans might not be available. But anyway, moving on here, we get another Edge segment backstage, and this one's with Baron Corbin. Corbin kind of walks up to Edge and brags about his expensive suit, saying it was a $10,000 suit and his watch was a $39,000 watch. And Edge just kind of looks at him and shows him his phone and says, "Oh, really? Well, this is my watch," and shows him how it says his phone says like 840. And that it takes pictures and stuff, just basically making Baron Corbin look like an idiot. I will take that. So this was another one of those little Elimination Chamber encounters that we had. If this was probably the least exciting one, though, because it might have been the only heel that he had an encounter with. The others were more of kind of a mutual respect encounter, so a little bit different than what we just got, but moving on here, we get Ding Dong Hello with Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, the women's tag team champions, as Bayley's guests. And Nia, Shayna, and Bayley all take turns taking shots and talking crap about Sasha and Bianca. But Reginald actually comes out in an attempt to speak for Sasha Banks and says that if she teamed up with her new sidekick, Bianca Belair, that Nia and Shayna would be former champions, which I actually agree with. If Sasha and Bianca were to team up, that Nia and Shayna probably wouldn't stand a chance. But I don't actually agree with the whole sidekick part, just that Nia and Shayna would lose. After that, Sasha comes out to basically tell Reggie not to speak for her, and then reminds us all that she's the boss, yada, yada, yada. Bianca Belair comes out after that and corrects Sasha by saying that by winning the Royal Rumble, it made the women's division revolve around her. And Reggie suggests that we have a 3-on-3 match and we get a referee to come out and make it official. But the 6-person tag match that he was referring to ended up being Sasha, Bianca, and Reggie versus Nia, Tamina, and Bayley. And this was actually a weird match. Reginald actually ends up pinning Nia Jax with the help of Bianca and Sasha by wiping out the rest of Nia's team. And then Reginald kind of did like a spinning jump. Nia caught him and positioned Reggie basically in the perfect position where he's across her body. And then Sasha and Bianca do like a little bit of a double drop kick. And Reginald picks up the win. So yeah, I'm not going to go on another rant about Nia Jax. You guys already know how I feel about her. So seeing her take a loss here to Reginald was weird, I guess. just strictly because, they are the tag team champions, but it wasn't a pure tag team match or a true tag team match. It was a 6-man tag match, and there was a guy in it, so you can't really put too much thought into this. And Reginald actually does get confronted a little bit later for showing up, because I was kind of wondering what the hell he's been doing supporting Sasha Banks, or at least trying to speak for her. This is multiple weeks now that he's come out, and instead of representing Carmella, it almost seems like he's leaning more towards Sasha Banks. So that's just something that I've noticed, and it really got brought to my attention whenever Carmella says something about it a little bit later in the show. But coming up here, we get a backstage interview with Kayla Braxton and Cesaro. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Seth Rollins mentions attacking him. Well, here in the backstage interview, Kayla Braxton actually asked Cesaro his thoughts about the comments made by Seth Rollins. And Cesaro says that he was hoping for a new Seth whenever he came back. That he was hoping that he would come back as the leader that they all knew he could be. And he adds that he hasn't forgotten about his attack and that he is going to get him back. But we get another Edge encounter here. He walks up and basically just gives Cesaro his stamp of approval. And he says that he has grit, that big word to Edge. If Edge tells you you have grit, that's pretty much just, you're good in his book. You've earned it. You are officially one of him. So I'm sure Cesaro loved hearing that. And he actually predicts that after his win on Sunday at Elimination Chamber, him and Edge will be one-on-one at WrestleMania in the main event. And that would actually be a pretty good match too. That's one that Vince McMahon would never let happen. But, just us wrestling fans, people that know how good both of these guys are, we know the type of match that would be. It just sucks that we'll probably never get to see that. We might get to see it. It just definitely won't happen at a WrestleMania. You can count on that. But moving on here, we get the Alpha Academy versus the Mysterios with Ziggler and Rude, guest on commentary, who are the current tag team champions. And this match was pretty weird, especially the ending. Otis seemed to be in control of the match and arguably about to win it. And Gable seemed to be coaching and or critiquing him, something that Otis was doing. And then for some reason the bell rang. I don't know if it was because the illegal man was refusing to leave the ring, who was Chad Gable at the time. I'm not really sure. If somebody knows what the hell happened there, you can definitely let me know. But after the match, Gable sets up Ray perfect for Otis to hit a frog splash off the top rope, and you can imagine how bad that would hurt. But that was a little bit different. Like I said, this was a confusing segment. I wasn't really sure if this was a sign of a heel turn or if Gable was just trying to get Otis to show a darker side or maybe just more of a destructive side. I'll definitely be paying closer attention to see if this is a trend going forward with this tag team, because I don't know what it is. I've noticed in the past that Gable always tries to kind of correct Otis whenever he doesn't need correcting, whether he's in control of a match, except normally they'll end up losing that match, and that's technically what happened here because the match had to get stopped. But instead of taking the fall, they end up just looking like a bunch of D-bags who basically, just threw sportsmanship out the window and frog splash Eddie Guerrero after the match. But either way, like I said, looking at the Alpha Academy as a team who might be changing up a little bit along with Apollo Crews going down that same avenue. So moving on here, we get a couple backstage segments. This one is another one with Edge. And Edge thanks Daniel Bryan for basically paving the way on the road to returning from a neck injury. He says that his comeback from his injury got Edge's wheel spinning, and it made him think that he could do it too. And I'm sure that there was a lot of truth to that. Daniel Bryan says that he can return the favor by choosing him after Daniel Bryan becomes the Universal Champion this Sunday. Edge versus Daniel Bryan, it seems like every single match or every single little encounter that Edge had, it just got a little bit more juicy and juicy as the night went on. And this one certainly did not disappoint. Keeping things backstage, though, we get Kevin Owens, because there was a commercial break. It didn't just go backstage segment to backstage segment with Daniel Bryan, because he is in both of these. There was a commercial break in between. So this one is a backstage segment with Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Cesaro. You see Daniel Bryan and Cesaro, they're talking. Looks like they are doing a little bit of, pre-match discussions. And Kevin Owens asks if they need to strategize for their match tonight. And Daniel Bryan and Cesaro say that they don't know if they need to plan for getting stunnered in the middle of the ring tonight. they kind of just say it jokingly. I actually do like how they didn't just gloss over that and have them just be on a tag team or a 6-man tag team, whatever, without mentioning what happened last week with Kevin Owens, just clearing the ring with stunners. He basically, used the excuse, I thought you guys were going after me. There was, just chaos happening in the ring. I mean, whatever. But Kevin Owens does actually apologize because they mention, they don't just mention what happened last week. They mention the whole Sami Zayn thing. They mentioned him turning on the New Day whenever he was an honorary member for like a whole day or whenever that was. They mentioned his past. And obviously Kevin Owens apologizes and says that they don't have to worry about a thing tonight, but Sunday, that's going to be a different story. And there's actually another backstage segment here. I must not have seen that one, but it's the one I was referring to with Carmella and Reginald. She asked where he was. She's sitting there looking in the mirror. She says, "Where were you just now? And why did it take so long to deliver this wine that he hands her?" And he actually lies to her. And this is where I kind of got thinking, what does he have up his sleeve? Because he lies about it, and he says that he was making sure that her wine was perfect, yada, yada, yada. And she basically just calls him out right away. She says, are you stupid? Do you really think I didn't just see you out there in the ring? But she says that he better have a good plan, and he better know what he's doing, or there's going to be consequences. She didn't necessarily say what. She didn't want to get there. She said, let's not even think about that. But I think it's all safe to say that that is the way we're going. This is kind of weird. I have no idea what they have planned with Reginald, why they're giving him such a heavy role in the entire SmackDown women's division, because it seems like every time there's women out there, he does make his appearance. I do think this is probably going to get a little bit juicier as weeks come on. I fully expect him to leave Carmella at some point. It's probably going to boil over, and Reginald's probably going to turn face. Seeing him getting beat up by women week in, week out is going to make the fans maybe have a little bit of a soft spot for him. But that's no guarantee. That could just make him look like a joke and make fans not even care if he shows up or not. Either way, I've noticed that he is definitely getting more and more mic time and camera time as the weeks go on. And it looks like this little I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. But him and Carmella, friction, you could say. It looks like that's only beginning. But moving on here to the main event of SmackDown. And it's a 6-man tag match featuring all of the members of the SmackDown Elimination Chamber match this Sunday, which is Sami Zayn, Baron Corbin, and Jey Uso versus Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Cesaro, with Edge as a special guest on commentary. In this match itself, if you just heard who was in it, this is just a plethora of talent. So you can expect the match isn't going to disappoint. If you didn't get to watch it, you certainly should before the Chamber happens. Hearing Edge and Paul Heyman go back and forth on commentary was just a thing of beauty as well, so you don't want to miss that either. And that's one thing I noticed, not to get too off topic, but earlier in the night, whenever Edge and Roman were kind of going back and forth, you kind of just notice, I actually said it to my roommate, Edge would run circles around Roman Reigns on the mic. Even this new version of Roman Reigns, if you get Edge comfortable and they're just going back and forth on the mic, it would be no contest. Edge is just somebody who you really don't want to mess with if you're on the mic. That's why those programs with him and John Cena back in the tail end of the Ruthless Aggression era, that's why those were so good. But anyways, this match does actually come to an end whenever Daniel Bryan makes Sami Zayn tap out with the yes lock. And then after that is whenever everything just... Corbin attacks Daniel Bryan after the match, and all hell broke loose. As DJ Kuzmo said on Twitter, it was basically a spot fest, finisher after finisher, until Roman Reigns actually came out and was the last man standing after he speared Edge in the middle of the ring. So that was that was a juicy main event. There was a lot of action. And then, the very, very end of it, as SmackDown went off the air, basically spoke for itself. Just finisher after finisher. Every single wrestler got a little bit of offense in, but immediately following that, they got dropped by somebody else's finisher until ultimately Roman Reigns was the last man standing holding up the belt, as he should be. This is like I said, Roman Reigns had the little bit of the opening segment with Edge, and then he hit one spear on Edge at the very end of the night, and that was it. That was his entire night. So not only did all of the people in the Elimination Chamber match have to go through a 6-man tag match 2 days before the Elimination Chamber, while Roman Reigns essentially had a night off, this Sunday they all have to compete in an Elimination Chamber match before Roman Reigns has to defend his championship against the winner later on that night. So Roman Reigns is as rested as he could possibly be, while his opponent is going to be as beat up and as exhausted as they can possibly be. So it's just going to be a complete mismatch. And I guess while I'm here, I mean, that's the end of SmackDown itself. So I guess while I'm here talking about the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, I might as well get into my predictions. And I'll start here with the United States Championship match between Bobby Lashley, Riddle, and Keith Lee. And I mean, you guys are going to hear a full prediction show tomorrow from Matt. And I believe he's going to have a co-host. I don't remember if I caught who it's going to be, but he did say he's going to have a co-host. So you guys are going to get an in-depth and I'm sure great full Elimination Chamber preview. So I'm not going to go too in-depth here. But I'll just give you my quick winners. The triple threat match with Bobby Lashley, Riddle, and Keith Lee. I do expect Keith Lee to possibly win it here. And I did have a little bit of trouble making that official, but that is going to be my official pick. With how the Hurt Business is going, I do think that MVP is injured. I don't know if that's going to affect him being at ringside. It could, but either way, I think that this could be the opportunity. WWE likes making title changes happen around this time of year. Not really to give anything else away. I don't think that there's going to be any other title changes happening that night. And because it's such a small card, they can't just have it extremely predictable. So, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and think that Keith Lee might get the win. Moving on here to the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. Or actually, no. We'll get to that match next. We will get to the number one contender championship match here first. For the Universal Championship number one contender, obviously. And this match is Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, Daniel Bryan, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, and Baron Corbin. I am predicting Kevin Owens to win. However, I do know that Cesaro is catching a lot of steam. He's picking up steam right now as being a hot pick for basically anybody who is predicting this. They all want to see Cesaro versus Roman Reigns, and it's hard to ignore the streak that I don't know why I keep calling Cesaro Apollo, but Cesaro, the streak that Cesaro has been on the past few weeks, it's basically just ensuring that he is going to have a pretty valuable spot here as SmackDown goes forward into WrestleMania season. However, I do expect Seth Rollins to make an appearance. I do think that him attacking him, them reminding us about that on SmackDown tonight, I think that it's going to pop up, and ultimately, Cesaro will probably cost Cesaro this match, and we will end up getting Seth Rollins versus Cesaro at WrestleMania, or maybe at Fastlane, but definitely between now and WrestleMania. Now I will get to that WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match from Raw with Drew, Sheamus, Randy, AJ, Jeff Hardy, and Kofi Kingston. And there's just absolutely no way Drew McIntyre is not going to walk into WrestleMania as the WWE Champion. It would just make no sense. I think WWE regrets taking the title off of him at any point in this calendar year. So there's really no point in doing it this close to Mania. That's when you're going to get the most bang for your buck, having Drew go in as the WWE Champion. Whether he wins it on Mania or not, that's to be discussed, and that's to be determined. But nonetheless, he has to be the guy who walks out of the Elimination Chamber with the WWE Championship, pending any Money in the Bank nonsense. I'm not even thinking about that, which could be stupid on my part, but that's just what it is. I mean, I don't really think Miz is going to do anything right now. If he does, I will be a little bit swerved. So that leaves, like I just said, I predicted Kevin Owens to win the SmackDown Elimination Chamber, just basically because it's an easy match. Like I said last week, it allows you to get the bad taste out of your mouth from, what was it, the Royal Rumble? Well, whatever pay-per-view it was where they had that complete botch with the whole handcuff thing. It allows you a little bit to forget about that and have Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns in their program a little more gracefully. So it gives you that opportunity there. And that's it, guys. Those are the 4 matches on the Elimination Chamber card. Surprisingly, a pretty short pay-per-view. I mean, who knows? With the chamber matches, it could be long in terms of time, but 4 matches is not a very long pay-per-view, and I'm not necessarily complaining because it's not a bad thing whenever these pay-per-views are around 3 hours or close to that. I feel like that's kind of that money spot anytime they go up really, really long. I know some people might like that, but for those of us who can fall asleep easily, that's not necessarily a good thing. But like I promised a little bit earlier, we're going to get to the top 5 Elimination Chamber matches of all time. All right, guys, top 5 time. And like I said earlier in the episode, this is the top 5 Elimination Chamber matches of all time. It won't be a long top 5. This is just going to be one of those quick ones I do. And pretty much it's going to be like one of the older top 5s where I bring out an article and read about a paragraph or so from somebody just to give you guys a little bit more analysis regarding each of these numbers. And this time I actually pulled an article from WWE.com itself, except each one of the matches the paragraph is written by somebody else, so you will get multiple different opinions on this. This one is by Anthony Bonino, and it's for the 2005 or 2014 Royal Rumble that comes in at number 5. So the 2014 Royal Rumble, and Anthony said, Daniel Bryan's roller coaster run to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship hits its gnarliest corkscrew inside the Elimination Chamber, where the Beard took what was then his last best opportunity at reigning champion Randy Orton, while a maelstrom of budding rivalry swirled around them. John Cena found his own lunge for the title besieged by the Wyatt family. Christian stunned the WWE Universe by pinning Sheamus, and Cesaro showcased his budding dominance in one of the most unforgivable moments imaginable. It all came down to Bryan and Orton, though thanks to Kane's unexpected interference, the People's Hero was denied once again, but for what turned out to be the last time. And I actually didn't get to watch this one live. This was right before I started watching WrestleMania again. But I'm well aware of Daniel Bryan's run to WrestleMania and what that meant. So I can only imagine how important this pay-per-view was in real time and watching it live. I'm sure it meant a lot to everybody. But moving on here to number 4, we will get the 2008 Royal Rumble. Or not Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber. God, I can't believe I'm still doing that. But moving on here, at number 4, we get the 2008 Royal Rumble. God, I can't believe I just did it again. The 2008 Elimination Chamber. Sorry, guys. It is 11:47 right now. Not too late compared to what time it normally is whenever I do these, but still, I mean, anybody who does podcasting or records late just can speak for me. This is not, or speaking, it definitely gets harder as the night goes on. So, as far as the number 4 Elimination Chamber match of all time goes, this was a pretty eventful one. Or at least star-studded at the very least. This one had Jeff Hardy, Chris Jericho, JBL, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Umaga. So definitely heel heavy. I'm not sure exactly how these guys were positioned at the time, but I mean, Jeff Hardy and Shawn Michaels are the only noticeable baby faces that are jumping out at the moment. So this could have been one of those chambers that were very heel heavy. I know that those do come around every now and then. But as far as the match itself goes, this one's from Jake Great. And Jake said, combining the high-flying, high-risk styles of Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, and Jeff Hardy with the bruising, overpowering force of Umaga, JBL, and Triple H, this free-for-all contest had something for everyone, from the top-notch technical wrestling between Jericho and HBK that began the contest to the furious pummelings of Umaga and JBL. Triple H entering 5th and Hardy 6th only added to the chaos as each superstar brought his A-game in full arsenal to the high-stakes battle. Every combatant had his moments and unleashed signature moves, eventually leaving only Hardy in the game standing. It took 2 pedigrees, the second onto a steel chair, for the cerebral assassin to put down the charismatic Enigma and secure a WWE Championship match at WrestleMania 24. And moving on here to number 3, we get the 2006 Elimination Chamber. John Cena, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, Carlito, Chris Masters, and Kane. So another pretty star-studded chamber match. And this one is actually by Kevin Powers, and what he said was the 2006 edition of the Elimination Chamber match marked the first time John Cena entered the structure. Even by the WWE Champion standards, there were some long odds staring him down. After the elimination of Kurt Angle by HBK, Cena suddenly found his title in jeopardy as Carlito, who defeated the champ for the US title in the WWE 2 years earlier, eliminated Kane, Michaels, and Masters. Certainly, no one had expected the King of Cool to outlast HBK, the most experienced superstar inside of the chamber. However, Moments after eliminating the Masterpiece, Carlito was caught off guard as Cena rolled him up to retain the WWE Championship and win his first Elimination Chamber match. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this actually might have been the Elimination Chamber where Edge cashed in his Money in the Bank immediately after John Cena won the Chamber match. If I'm pretty sure, Matt would definitely know that because I think he was at that pay-per-view, so this might have been the one. So I definitely don't want to misquote that if that is not true, but if I'm not mistaken, that is what happened. But moving on here, we get number 2 and number 1, and these two can honestly be interchangeable, flip-flopped, whatever, because they're both near and dear to my heart. So either way you want to slice it. At number 2, we get the 2003 Elimination Chamber match, and that one features Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Randy Orton, Goldberg, and Kevin Nash at SummerSlam 2003. Now, this one I actually remember literally like it was yesterday, but I actually do want to read what Zach Linder wrote because he does write some pretty good stuff about it and put it in pretty good words. So he said, "For all of the wars that have been waged inside the Elimination Chamber, none of them boasted the immense star power of the physically intense contest at SummerSlam 2003, and it was only the second one ever. Locked inside was the Chamber's first winner, Shawn Michaels, NWO revolutionary Kevin Nash, WCW veteran Goldberg, a 23-year-old Randy Orton, WWE's first undisputed champion Chris Jericho, and the reigning World Heavyweight Champion Triple H. At least one elimination had lasting implications beyond the match. Nash was sent packing first with the Sweet Chin music that kicked Big Sexy right out of the WWE for 8 years. However, the match truly belonged to Goldberg. Entering the contest last, the former Atlanta Falcon defensive tackle and nose guard handily took care of Orton, Michaels, and Jericho before literally punching through glass to get to Triple H. Unfortunately, from the outside, Ric Flair passed along the sledgehammer, permitting the champion to attack the Georgia native with the weapon and retain his championship. That still hurts to think about. I was very sad whenever that happened. But moving on here to the number 1 spot, and I'm sure all of you know, no coincidence, the first chamber that ever happened, 2002 at Survivor Series, Triple H versus Booker T versus Rob Van Dam versus Chris Jericho versus Kane and Shawn Michaels. And I definitely want to read you guys a little bit about what Michael Burdick had to say about this one. And he said that at Survivor Series 2002, inside the greatest arena in the world, Madison Square Garden, the first ever Elimination Chamber match was contested for the World Heavyweight Championship. The contest features 6 of WWE's most dangerous superstars, including reigning title holder Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Booker T, RVD, Kane, and Chris Jericho. And once the WWE Universe got a taste of the career-changing structure, standing 36 feet in diameter and weighing 20,000 pounds, the squared circle would never again be the same. The innovative chamber redefined the meaning of the word pain, with all 6 competitors using the miles of unforgiving steel chain to absolutely tear each other apart. Before the contest was over, 2 warriors were hurled through the Lexinglass pods, and both a frog splash and an elbow drop were launched from the top of the pods. Ultimately, HBK triumphed over the game, his best friend turned bitter rival, to capture a much-deserved victory and the last world championship in his WWE Hall of Fame career. However, the lasting legacy created that night was one of horrific anguish, not only for the brave pioneers who ventured inside the chamber that night, but also for anyone who would dare to enter the structure from that point forward. And like Matt and Anthony DeMarco have both said, it does kind of suck that the Elimination Chamber isn't what it used to be. I mean, just the shape itself, I love that shape. It had like a little bit of a dome look to it. Now it kind of has like more of like a house structure where it's, squared and then has like a pointy top. I mean, it still looks great, don't get me wrong, but I mean, just the original, you really can't beat it. It was smaller, so it just looked a little bit more brutal. Just something about it. I don't know. I'm still going to be looking forward to it. The chamber is one of a kind. Every single year, this is just one of the matches that I can always get excited for. The fact that it happens right in this time of the year just makes the whole WrestleMania season that much better. So I'm definitely going to be in my seat and paying close attention this Sunday whenever the Elimination Chamber matches actually happen. But I think that should just about do it for me here tonight, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. I'll be back next week to do another top 5. I think I'm going to do the top 5 current wrestler theme songs. I know I've already done the Ruthless Aggression era theme songs. I think I'm going to do a little bit more modern, keep it to the active superstars. There's a few that I really like their songs, and I really want to get you guys' opinion, let you guys know what I think about current wrestlers and their theme songs. Having said all that, though, guys, I hope you guys all have a great weekend and a great rest of your week. I am looking forward to next week and finding out who won the Chambers. Hopefully, whenever I talk to you guys next week, we will be able to figure out, or we will have already known, who Edge decided, who Bianca Belair decided, and we can officially look forward to the programs that are going to be headlining WrestleMania on both the men and the women's side. So, a lot to look forward to going forward, but like I said, top 5 current wrestler theme songs next week, as well as a SmackDown review per usual. So having said all that, I hope you guys all have a great week.